Let me make this really simple. Words matter. They reveal more than most people realize. And sometimes the things a man says to you aren't just careless comments, they're red flags, big ones, the kind that tell you who he really is and what life with him will look like. Today, I'm going to give you 5 specific phrases. If you hear them, don't argue, don't explain, just walk away. When a man looks at you and says, you're too sensitive, I want you to really hear what's happening in that moment. Because what he's not doing is listening. What he's not doing is honoring your feelings. What he's not doing is showing you respect. Instead, he's taking the very thing you're opening up about, your emotions, your vulnerability, and flipping it back on you like it's a problem. That's not love. That's not care. That's dismissal. Now, let me be clear. Sensitivity isn't a weakness. Sensitivity means you feel. It means you notice. It means you care enough to let someone in. That's strength. But when he says you're too sensitive, what he's really saying is, I don't want to deal with what you're bringing up. So I'm going to shut it down before it ever gets off the ground. And that's dangerous because it teaches you over time that your feelings aren't safe to share, that your emotions are somehow wrong. And when you start believing that, you start silencing yourself. Think about it. Relationships are built on communication. If every time you try to communicate, you're told you're too much, eventually you stop talking. And when you stop talking, you disconnect. And when you disconnect, the relationship isn't really a partnership anymore. It's just you trying not to upset someone who refuses to meet you halfway. That's not sustainable. Now, let me ask you, why would someone say that? Why would someone call you too sensitive? Because it's easier than accountability. It's easier than saying, you know what, you're right. I could have handled that better, or I see how that hurt you and I'll work on it. Accountability is hard. But blame shifting, that's quick. And calling you too sensitive is just a quick way to dodge responsibility. And here's the truth, people who love you don't want to silence your feelings. They want to understand them. They may not always agree. They may not always like hearing it, but they don't label you as the problem just for expressing yourself. That label, too sensitive, it's meant to shut the door on the conversation to make you question your own reality. And if you're not careful, you'll start thinking, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe it is me. That's not clarity. That's manipulation. You see, language matters because if someone keeps telling you you're too sensitive, after a while, you don't just doubt your feelings, you doubt your worth. You start adjusting yourself to fit into their comfort zone. And in doing that, you shrink, you lose pieces of who you are just to keep the peace. And no relationship is worth you losing yourself. Here's the difference. The right man will want to know why something bothers you. He'll lean in, not push away. He'll say, tell me more. Help me understand. He won't shame you for feeling. He won't make you feel small. He'll stand in it with you, even when it's messy, because real connection requires empathy. And empathy doesn't sound like you're too sensitive. Empathy sounds like, I didn't realize that hurt you. I'll do better. So the next time you hear that phrase, you're too sensitive, I want you to pause, not to second guess yourself, but to recognize what's really happening. That's not a reflection of you. That's a reflection of him. And it's telling you loud and clear, this is someone who doesn't value your voice. And if he doesn't value your voice now, he's not going to value it later. Don't try to explain it away. Don't try to convince him otherwise. You don't have to debate your own emotions because your emotions are valid. Your sensitivity is strength. And a man who can't see that isn't a man you should stay with. So if he tells you you're too sensitive, walk away. When a man says to you, you'll never find anyone better than me, I want you to stop right there and hear the weight behind those words, because that isn't confidence speaking. That isn't love speaking. That's control. That's fear wrapped in arrogance. And it's meant to trap you in a place where you start to believe your options are limited when the truth is they're not. Think about what's really being said in that moment. He's not celebrating your connection. He's not grateful for the relationship. He's putting himself on a pedestal and daring you to believe you could ever do better. That's not a partner. That's a salesman. And what's he selling? He's selling you the idea that he's the best you'll ever have, so you'd better stay put. And that is manipulation, plain and simple. Now, here's the problem with manipulation like this. It doesn't always sound like manipulation at first. Sometimes it sounds like teasing. Sometimes it sounds like confidence. But if you listen closely, you'll realize it's not said to lift you up. It's said to keep you down, because the message is clear. Without me, you're nothing. And once you start believing that he's got the control, real confidence doesn't need to compare. Real love doesn't need to trap. A healthy man doesn't have to remind you he's the best thing that ever happened to you. He shows it by how he treats you. He proves it with consistency, with patience, with kindness. That's what speaks louder than words. But when he has to declare, you'll never find anyone better, that's insecurity trying to disguise itself as strength. Let me be real with you. If someone truly thinks they're the best you'll ever find, they don't feel the need to improve. They don't feel the need to grow. They don't feel the need to check themselves, because in their mind, you're already lucky to have them. And that sets the stage for complacency. That's how relationships die. When one person stops showing up and hides behind pride instead of progress. And here's where it gets even trickier. That phrase can make you start second guessing yourself. You might begin to wonder, what if he's right? What if I don't find anyone better? And once that thought creeps in, it starts shaping your choices. You tolerate more than you should. You stay longer than you should. You accept things you don't deserve, all because someone convinced you that your worth begins and ends with them. But let me tell you this, if a man has to convince you he's the best you'll ever find, he's already showing you he's not. The truth is, there are billions of people in this world, and the right one isn't going to threaten you into staying. The right one isn't going to measure your options for you. The right one is going to be grateful that you choose him every day, not try to scare you into thinking you don't have a choice. That's the difference between love and control. Because love doesn't sound like you'll never find anyone better. Love sounds like, I'm thankful you chose me. Love sounds like, I want to be better for you. Love sounds like, I see your worth and I don't take it for granted. And if a man can't say those things, if instead he makes you feel small just to make himself look big, you're not looking at a partner, you're looking at a prison. You deserve someone who lifts your confidence, not someone who locks it in a box. You deserve someone who reminds you of your value without needing to compare it to anyone else. And you deserve someone who never tries to convince you that he's the ceiling of your worth. Because the truth is, your worth has no ceiling. So when you hear the words, you'll never find anyone better than me, don't argue. Don't try to prove otherwise. Just recognize the control hiding in that sentence. Recognize the insecurity that's fueling it. And recognize that it's not your job to fix it, excuse it, or accept it. If he tells you you'll never find anyone better than him, walk away. When a man looks you in the eye and says, I'm only like this because of you, I want you to stop and realize what just happened. He didn't take responsibility for his actions. He didn't own his choices. He put the weight of his behavior on your shoulders. That's not accountability. That's blame. And blame is poison in a relationship. Think about it. Everyone has moments when they're upset, when they raise their voice, when they don't handle things the right way. That's human. But maturity means being able to say, I shouldn't have done that, or that was on me. Because accountability builds trust. It says, you can rely on me to be honest about where I fall short. But when he says, I'm only like this because of you, what he's really saying is, I'm not going to change. I'm going to make you carry the blame instead. And that's a red flag you can't ignore. Here's the trap over time. Those words can make you question yourself. You start replaying situations in your head, wondering if you really did because his anger, his silence, his distance. You begin to tiptoe around him, thinking if you just said it differently or did it differently, maybe he wouldn't act that way. That's not partnership. That's walking on eggshells. And eggshells never make a solid foundation. Blame shifting works like quicksand. The more you fight it, the deeper you sink, because it's designed to distract you from the real issue, his choices. If he lashes out and says, well, I wouldn't have if you hadn't, suddenly the conversation isn't about his outburst anymore. It's about your reaction. And just like that, the spotlight moves off of him and onto you. That's not a conversation, that's a diversion. Now, let's call this what it is: emotional manipulation. Because if he can convince you that you're the reason he behaves poorly, then he doesn't have to look in the mirror. He doesn't have to change. And worse, you begin to feel responsible for fixing him. But here's the truth: his behavior is his choice. Always, you don't cause someone's anger. You don't cause someone's disrespect. They choose it. And if they blame you for it, that's not love, that's control. Let me paint it another way. Imagine two people arguing. One says, "I'm upset because you didn't hear me." That's honest. That's expressing a feeling. But if instead he says, "I yelled because of you," he's excusing his reaction by turning you into the reason. Do you see the difference? The first one takes ownership of an emotion. The second one dodges responsibility for a behavior. And those are two very different things. Here's the danger. If you accept that narrative long enough, you begin to internalize it. You start carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. And that guilt can keep you tied to a man who refuses to grow because you think leaving means abandoning him. But you're not abandoning him. You're stepping away from a cycle that was never yours to fix. A healthy man doesn't tell you he's like this because of you. A healthy man says, "I'm sorry, that was on me." He says, "I got it wrong. I'll do better." He separates your actions from his reactions because he knows the difference. That's accountability. That's respect. And that's what real partnership sounds like. So when he tells you, "I'm only like this because of you," don't argue. Don't start defending yourself. Because the moment you go down that road, you've already accepted the blame he handed you. Instead, see it for what it is: a refusal to own up to his choices. And if he refuses accountability now, he won't suddenly start taking it later. If he tells you he's only like this because of you, walk away. When a man says, "Nobody else would put up with you," I want you to hear exactly what's being said. That's not a joke. That's not tough love. That's an attack on your self-worth. Because what he's really telling you is that you should feel lucky just to have him. That no one else would see you as valuable, that you're somehow too much, too flawed, too difficult. And if you believe that you'll stay in a place you were never meant to stay, here's the thing: words like that don't come from love. Love builds. Love lifts you up when the world tries to tear you down. But when someone tells you that nobody else would put up with you, that's not lifting you. It's shrinking you. It's designed to make you think your options are limited, that you don't deserve better, and that leaving would mean no one else would ever want you. That's not truth. That's control. And control like that doesn't show up all at once. It's usually planted little by little. Maybe it starts as a passing comment, something said in frustration, something you brush off. But then it happens again and again. And before long, it becomes the background noise of your relationship. And the more you hear it, the more it starts to sound believable, because repetition is powerful. If someone repeats a lie often enough,